Hello, and welcome to another whiteboard training video. I'm Elliot Brecht with The Cheeky Scientist, and today I wanted to go over a little bit about the resume structure because we've been noticing that while people have started to be much better about realizing that they need to actually have a resume for industry instead of a CV, they're not necessarily always understanding what exactly the components that need to go into any type of resume that you do. And this is, no matter what type of resume, if you're going to sort of do like the sort of standard, our gold standard resume, or you're going to do a functional resume or a sidebar one-page resume, a recruiter resume, any of these types of resumes are going to have a lot of the same components that you're going to condense down from that CV into several sort of key components, because some of what you want to do, and you're going to always do in any of this type of formats of a resume that you utilize, is you want to initially have that summary at the top. You don't want to bury the lead about why you're a good candidate and why you should be hired. You want to have in that summary, you want to have initially that elevator pitch. So that's basically that first sort of line, that first sentence that just sort of describes you and why you're awesome and why the company wants to hire you. So that's going to be the very first thing, because a hiring manager or recruiter, they're going to just initially spend just a few seconds reading and looking at your resume, and you need to catch them up quickly. You want to go over and have them say, all right, I want to read more. Next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have that sort of that most relevant technical skill, and you'll describe more of that in how you acquired it and what you did with it. And within that function, you're going to sort of do as we have here for all of your experience bullet points. You're going to want to utilize that structure in that initial summary as well. And that last one is going to be that sort of that soft skill. What is the most relevant for that company as well? What is the your ability to communicate, your ability to manage people, whatever that component is actually the most important. So you're going to have those things top, front and center, no matter what type of resume you're utilizing, because you want to catch somebody right off the bat. And then the way the other stuff gets sort of structured is going to switch up a little bit depending on what type of resume you utilize. But what you want to start doing is making sure that no matter what structure you use, when you go through and you have your other experiences and you have these things listed out in all the other bullet points, you want to go over instead of having big blocks of text, because it makes it a lot harder to read. You want to have smaller condensed bullet points, and you're going to go through and you're going to have sort of what is that transferable skill, what is the technical skill or experience that you utilized and gained, or how you gained this transferable skill, and then what is a measurable and quantifiable result that you acquired, that came from the acquisition of these skills. And this can be anything like those publications, presentations, discoveries, any sort of optimization or innovative methodology, getting grant funding, patents, anything. So there's all sorts of numbers of things you can put in there. You go through how many students you trained, how many people you taught, how many classes you were the lead of, how many things. So having in those numbers and those quantifiable and measurable results are what someone wants to see in there. And that's what you're going to do in any type of structured resume. So again, if you're going to have over, it doesn't matter if it is sort of that gold standard, which is a 2-page resume max. You don't want to end up having that huge 5, 7, 20-page CV listing out everything. You're going to want to go over and have it condensed down. Or if you're going to switch over to a more functional resume, which is instead of actually listing out everything in a chronological order, you're going to go over and you'll switch that up and say, here's a major skill that I acquired that is great for this opportunity, this position. And then you'll again list out these experience points underneath that and say, I've acquired this skill, this skill, this skill, this skill. And it doesn't matter where you gained them at. You could have gained them at as a PhD, as a postdoc, as a volunteer at a company. But instead of going through and listing out those all chronologically and said, I did this from this year to this year, this month to this month, you'll go through and say, I've acquired these sets of different skills at a lot of different opportunity. Your sort of gold standard, your sort of standard resume is going to still have things listed out chronologically. But again, when you're going to have those opportunities, you're not going to go over and list, oh, I did a postdoc or I did a PhD here. You can do over and you were a research scientist or researcher, or you were a manager. Did you utilize your skill set to be in charge of multiple other people, so you were managing these things? Were you a research scientist because you were collecting all the data and then coming up with presentations and coming up with results from that? What were the other skills? Not necessarily just listing out those academic titles and those academic settings. You want to go over and start switching them and wording some of these things in a more industry style, so that when someone sees them, they actually understand them more, because you want to make sure that you're not being too technical and you're not going over and making it hard for a lay person to read, because usually that first person who's going to be looking at your resume is someone in HR, so they don't necessarily have the exact background and knowledge that you have. So you don't want to go through and start using a bunch of acronyms and jargon that the hiring manager might know, but the HR person isn't going to see or understand these. That is, unless it is listed in the job advert. And so one of the ways you can actually make sure that you are hitting and including all of those technical skills and transferable skills that you want to include in the resume, you can take a couple different job adverts and stick them into a word cloud, and that'll then pop up the top skills and top things that they want to have in there. You'll then take whatever the top listing are and make sure that you include those top skills, those top words that are in there, and those will be included in a bullet. That's in a bullet either in your summary or in the experiences that you have. You'll then take any of the lesser ones and make sure that those are listed in sort of your skills section. Skill section, which I haven't said it, you would potentially be towards the top if you are sending this to a recruiter, because a recruiter, they're not necessarily going to know all the other skills, and so you want to have those things front and center for them. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to structure out these different components so they're targeted for the specific audience. And so you want to make sure you have included all of the things that are in those job adverts that someone's going to want to see, and then remove any of that superfluous stuff. So most of the opportunities in jobs don't really need to know that you know how to use Microsoft Office. Everybody should pretty much know how to write in Word or know what Excel or PowerPoint is. And so you don't need to go over and include that in your resume. That's just taking up space where you can actually include something that's more valuable and actually targeted to that job opportunity. So you want to go make sure that you are targeting all these things, like I said, using a word cloud so that those words that are important pop up. Unless, of course, you added all these things in there and they want you to include those types of skills in there. But everything has to come with a caveat. There's no perfect way of doing anything, because every job and every type of job is going to have different skills that they want to see and have utilized. Is it communication? Is it for writing? Is it for research? Is it for whatever? So you got to make sure that you're targeting each of those things, and you're not just coming up with a sort of generic catch-all, because you can't just necessarily take and spray and pray by just throwing out a resume to all types of opportunities and hope something will eventually stick, because they're going to tell that you're not actually trying to target for these specific opportunities. So again, you want to do for that, the components that need to be in there needs to be that summary that is, giving you your elevator pitch, giving the top technical and the top transferable soft skill that is best for that job opportunity. You want to include experience bullets instead of text, a big block, because no one wants to spend the time reading some sort of giant half-page paragraph. You want to have small condensed bullets in there that are going to have that transferable skill, that technical skill or experience, and then the measurable or quantifiable result. And again, those results can be anything from publications, number of classes you taught, patents, grants, things like that. And then you'll have all the different skills, the other skills that are required for that position listed in a skill section. And then your education is going to be listed down somewhere near the bottom, because people applying for these positions, they don't care where you got the university. Well, in academia, that's the top thing you put in there. For industry, they really just care that you have gotten a degree, and that's sort of it. As long as you've earned this degree and you've put the work forth in there, they can see that you've done all that work, and that's all that really matters. So there's not a whole bunch of other components that you need to go through and put through in there. So you just want to make sure you're hitting, again, these main points and these main components into that resume structure, depending on whichever type you use. So this takes us to the end of this whiteboard training. Again, I'm Elliot Brecht, and I want you to head over to phdsgethired.com to learn more about our flagship program, the Cheeky Scientists Association. So, as always, remember your value as a PhD and start thinking and acting.